Have you ever held on to someone so tightly that you didn't even realize you were breaking yourself in the process? Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. The silent battle between letting go and holding on, especially when it comes to love. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and stick around till the end. Because what we're about to explore might not just give you clarity, it might just change your love life forever. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, let's call him Amir. Amir was deeply in love with someone who once made him feel alive. Her laughter lit up the rooms he walked into. Her presence was the comfort he ran to when the world felt too heavy. But somewhere along the road, she changed, or maybe he just started noticing things he ignored before. The calls became shorter, the messages took longer to come, and the warmth slowly turned cold. Still, Amir held on. He told himself it was just a phase. He replayed their old memories like a playlist stuck on loop. He ignored the loneliness, the tears, the aching weight of trying alone. Why? Because letting go felt like betrayal. It felt like giving up on a love he believed in. It felt like failure. But here's the question. Was it really love that he was holding on to? Or just the fear of losing it? Letting go versus holding on. It's not a decision, it's a war inside your heart. And the truth is, both require strength, but they serve different kinds of growth. Let's break this down. Because chances are, if you're watching this, you might be Amir, or maybe you've been with someone like him. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever laid awake at night staring at your phone, waiting for that one message from someone who used to text you 100 times a day, that tiny glowing screen becoming your last thread of hope? Yeah, I know that feeling. It's the same moment where your heart whispers, let go. But your mind screams, what if they come back? You start thinking of those early days, right? Remember the butterflies? The way they looked at you like you were their entire world? The way their voice could melt all your stress in seconds? Hold that memory for a second. Now compare it to what you feel today. Do you still feel that love? Or are you now holding on to what used to be? You see, one of the greatest illusions in love is thinking that if we hold on just a little longer, try just a little harder, love them just a little deeper, they'll come back. They'll change. They'll finally choose us the way we choose them. But here's the truth no one tells you. Holding on doesn't always save the relationship. Sometimes it just prolongs your pain. Let me tell you about someone I knew. His name was Bilal. Bilal was the guy who gave everything. Flowers, late-night calls, surprise dinners. He wasn't just in love, he lived in love. But his girl, she slowly drifted away. First it was unread messages, then it became excuses. Until finally, she told him she needed space. And you know what Bilal did? He held on. He told himself it was just a phase. He told himself love never gives up. So he waited and waited while she moved on. But why? Why did he hold on when everything in his soul knew she was gone? Because holding on gives us the illusion of control. It makes us feel like we're doing something. Like we can save what's slipping through our fingers. It's like gripping a rope that's burning your hands, but you won't let go because you're too afraid of the fall. And maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're watching this and thinking, yeah, this sounds like my story. Maybe you're loving someone who stopped loving you. Maybe you're the one trying to revive a love that flatlined long ago. But I want you to pause for a second and ask yourself this. Is the person you're holding on to still holding on to you? Because if the answer is no, then maybe, just maybe, you're not holding on to love. You're holding on to memories, to comfort, to the fear of letting go. And that's not love, my friend. That's self-destruction dressed as devotion. Let that sink in. And keep watching, because what I'm about to share next might be the turning point your heart's been waiting for. Letting go, the courage to heal. You know what's harder than holding on? Letting go. Especially when your heart still beats for someone who stopped showing up for it. But let me ask you this. Have you ever stood at the edge of something beautiful and felt it slipping away? No matter how tightly you tried to hold on, that's what letting go feels like at first. Like standing in front of a closing door, whispering prayers that maybe, just maybe, they'll turn around. But they don't. And that silence, that's where healing begins. There's a story I want to share about a woman named Hira. Hira was in a 6-year relationship. Everyone said they were perfect. The Instagram photos, the matching outfits, the anniversary dinners, it all looked like a fairy tale. But behind the scenes, she was slowly disappearing. He no longer noticed her silence. He stopped asking how her day was. He brushed off her tears with, "You're too emotional." And yet, she stayed. Because she remembered the boy he used to be, the one who danced with her in parking lots, the one who wrote her letters, the one who once made her believe in forever. She held on for that version of him. But here's what changed everything. One night, she looked in the mirror and asked herself a question that shattered her denial. If I met him today for the first time, would I even choose him? And just like that, she knew. She wasn't in love with him anymore. She was in love with who he used to be, with who she used to be when he loved her better. So she let go. It wasn't easy. She cried for weeks. She questioned herself every hour. But with each day, the fog began to lift. Because here's what no one tells you. Letting go doesn't break you. It breaks your illusion. And that's where freedom lives. You see, letting go is not about erasing memories. It's about rewriting the future without the pain. It's about choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, yourself over someone who forgot your worth. And maybe right now that's where you are. Maybe your heart is still arguing with your mind. Maybe you still replay the good times and think, what if they come back? But ask yourself this. Why would you wait for someone to remember your value when you were never meant to be forgotten in the first place? That's what letting go is. It's not cold. It's not cruel. It's courage. It's you saying, I love you, but I love me more. It's you choosing healing over hoping, growth over guilt, peace over pain. So if you're standing at that same edge today, let go, not because they're bad, but because you're finally ready to be good to yourself. And trust me, that's where the real love story begins. The signs you're holding on too long. Let's get honest now. Sometimes we don't even realize we're holding on too long. Because when your heart is all in, your mind becomes the master of excuses. You tell yourself, they're just busy. It's just a rough patch. No one is perfect. And while all of that might be true, there's a thin line between patience and self-neglect. So how do you know when it's time to stop fighting for something that isn't fighting for you? Let me take you into the story of someone I once knew. His name was Daniel. He used to be the one who always texted first, always showed up, always forgave. He carried the weight of the relationship, like a soldier carrying love on his back, believing that if he just held on long enough, she'd start meeting him halfway. But months passed, birthdays forgotten, plans canceled, affection faded into obligation. Still, he stayed. One night over coffee, he looked at me and said something that hit me deep. I feel like I'm the only one clapping in a room where the performance is already over. And I thought, that's it. That's how you know. So if you're wondering whether you've been holding on too long, let's go through the signs together. And as you listen, be real with yourself. Because this might just be the mirror you've been avoiding. Number 1, you're the only one making the effort. You always reach out first. You plan the dates. You fix the fights. They show up when it's convenient but disappear when you need them most. Love isn't a one-person job. If you're carrying it alone, it's not love. It's labor. Number 2, you're more anxious than happy. You overthink every message. You analyze every tone, every delay in response. You constantly wonder if they're losing interest. Your love shouldn't feel like walking on glass barefoot every day. Number 3, you're attached to who they used to be. You say things like, but they weren't always like this. Or, I just want things to go back to how they were. Friend, that version of them no longer exists. You're loving a ghost while they're alive. Number 4, you fear being alone more than being unhappy. This one hurts the most. Sometimes we stay not because it's right, but because we don't want to face our reflection in an empty room. But I promise you, loneliness isn't the worst thing. Staying with someone who makes you feel lonely while they're right next to you, that's far worse. Number 5, your self-worth depends on their attention. When they're sweet, you feel seen. When they pull away, you feel invisible. But your worth isn't seasonal. It doesn't depend on someone's moods or presence. Now take a deep breath and ask yourself, if love means losing yourself, is it still love? Because the moment you recognize these signs is the moment your healing begins. It's not weakness to admit the truth. It's wisdom. It's strength. And most of all, it's the first step back to yourself. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving. Here's the part no one talks about. You can let someone go and still love them. Yes, both can exist in the same breath. And if you've ever had to walk away from someone you still loved, you already know how hard that is. Let me share a story. There was this guy, his name was Saad. Quiet, thoughtful, full of dreams. He met Maya in university, and from the first conversation, he knew she was different. She was fire. He was calm. She was spontaneous, loud, full of life. He was grounded, steady, the type of man who wrote poetry in silence. For years, they grew together. But at some point, they also grew apart. Different careers, different cities, different versions of who they were becoming. The calls got shorter. The laughter became forced. And the connection that once came effortlessly now needed effort just to feel alive. But here's what's wild. Saad still loved her. Deeply. Honestly. But he loved her so much, he couldn't bear to watch her fade in front of him. And so, he let her go. And that's the part that shatters most people. He didn't stop loving her. He just started loving himself too. You see, letting go doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It doesn't mean you're erasing everything you shared. It means you've come to terms with this one truth. Sometimes love isn't enough, and that's okay. Because real love isn't just about holding on. It's about knowing when to hold on, and when the most loving thing you can do for both of you is to let go. Maybe you're in that place now, where your heart still aches for someone who's no longer holding your hand, where the memories are louder than their presence, where every song, every smell, every street reminds you of them. And still, you're here, trying to breathe without them, trying to heal with their fingerprints still on your soul. Let me tell you something. You don't need to hate them to move on. You don't need closure. You don't need some dramatic ending. Sometimes the most powerful goodbye is the one whispered in silence. The one where you close the chapter out of self-respect, not resentment. And even if they're still in your heart, that doesn't mean they need to be in your life. Letting go is not a sign that you've stopped loving. It's a sign that you're choosing to start healing. You're choosing peace. You're choosing clarity. You're choosing you. So if today feels heavy, if your love still lingers in the corners of your soul, know this: you can love them and still walk away. You can wish them well from a distance, and that kind of love, that's not weakness, that's maturity. When holding on becomes a prison, there comes a moment in every story where love stops being a comfort and starts feeling like a cage. And if you're really honest with yourself, maybe you're already there. Maybe you're holding on so tightly, not because you believe in the relationship, but because you're terrified of who you'll be without it. Let me share one final story with you. There was a girl named Ariba, soft-hearted, loyal, the type of woman who gives until she's empty. She was with someone who always kept her guessing. One day he'd make her feel like the center of his world. The next he'd disappear emotionally, cold, distant, unavailable. But every time she thought of walking away, he'd do just enough to pull her back in. A text, a memory, a half-hearted apology followed by, "You know I love you, right?" And so she stayed, not because she was weak, but because she remembered the good parts, because she believed that if she could just be more patient, more understanding, more loving, he would finally become the man she dreamed of. But here's the truth Ariba didn't want to admit. She wasn't in a relationship. She was in a cycle of highs and lows, of hope and heartbreak, of constantly shrinking herself just to keep his love. She wasn't growing, she was withering. And one day it hit her like a quiet whisper in her soul. This is not love. This is survival. That's when she realized something so many of us overlook. Holding on can become a prison, when it starts costing you your freedom, your identity, and your peace. And maybe you're in that prison right now, where your days are filled with anxiety, where you can't even recognize who you were before this love, where you're no longer living, you're enduring. But let me tell you something only someone who's been through it can say. That's not your forever. That's not the best love you'll ever know. That's not your only chance at happiness. And most importantly, that's not your fault. You're not weak for staying. You're human. You loved deeply. You tried. You hoped. But now it's time to ask yourself, at what cost? Your heart is not a place for someone to come and go as they please. Your worth is not a game of how much you can tolerate. Your love is not a prison sentence. You were never meant to be kept in emotional chains. You were meant to be loved with freedom, respect, and joy. So if holding on is starting to feel like suffocating, If you cry more than you laugh, if you doubt yourself more than you feel secure, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop holding on. Not because you don't love them, but because you finally love yourself enough to walk away. So, now that you've walked with me through every corner of this emotional battlefield, from the illusion of control to the quiet strength of letting go, let me ask you something that only you can answer. What are you really holding on to? Is it love? Or is it the idea of love, the version of it that once was, or the one you keep hoping will come back? Because real love, it doesn't make you beg. It doesn't keep you questioning your worth. It doesn't make you feel like you're constantly chasing someone who only turns around when they're lonely. Real love feels like peace, not war. And if that love you're clinging to feels like emotional exhaustion, if it drains you more than it fills you, then maybe you're not healing by staying. You're hurting. Letting go isn't about being cold. It's about being courageous. It's about saying, I gave everything I had, but I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep someone else warm. It's about understanding that healing doesn't begin when they apologize. It begins when you stop needing them to. And I know, letting go might feel like you're losing a part of yourself, but sometimes it's in letting go that we finally find ourselves. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to burn every memory. You can still love them. From a distance, you can carry the lessons without carrying the pain. Because the most powerful kind of love is the love you give to yourself when you finally walk away from what's breaking you. Let this be your reminder. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not unworthy just because someone failed to see your value. And you are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to choose peace over potential. So if your heart is tired, if your soul is whispering, I deserve more than this, then maybe it's time to stop holding on. Not because you stopped loving, but because you finally realized that you deserve the love you keep trying to give to everyone else. This moment right here is not your ending. It's your becoming. And if this message reached you in the quiet corners of your heart, if it helped you feel seen even for a moment, then hit that like button, subscribe for more truth and healing, and share this with someone who might be stuck in the same story, because you never know who needs to hear. You're not alone, and you're strong enough to let go. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.